Then from copper sulfate, we are going to get back to copper. Ideally, if we start with 0.5 grams of copper, we should end up with 0.5 grams of copper if we don't lose the copper in any step. I place the reaction mixture in the fume hood to make sure that the reaction is complete before I take it out of the fume hood. There is no need for us to have hydrogen gas in the. Okay, I just want to show you those red color peaks that are forming because it's more obvious now, the color of the copper that is forming. You could record your observation. The blue color is almost gone, and then we have the red color copper coming out. Just to make sure there is no more zinc left over, I'm going to add some HCl. So HCl is not going to react with copper. It will only react with zinc. And filter it. So we are going to filter using gravity filtration that we set it up already. We want all the copper to stay on the filter paper. Any copper that is left in the beaker, I have to wash it with water. After we wash with DI water, the procedure is asking us to wash with methanol and then wash with acetone. The purpose we're washing with acetone is to make sure that it would dry much faster, because acetone is the same ingredient you have for nail polish remover. If you leave it open, it evaporates, or when you apply it to your hand, it goes away quickly. It dries up quickly. So after washing with water, I'm washing with some methanol to remove any water, any impurities. And after washing with methanol, I'm going to wash with acetone. And when I wash with acetone, it's going to help drying to happen faster. So I try to wash the paper with acetone also, to make sure that the paper is washed with acetone. So we have to dry the filter paper with the copper. We dry the filter paper using a heating lamp. So plug in the heating lamp. It's on. I bring layers of filter paper so it absorbs the moisture from the bottom and the heat from the top. It will make the drying faster. There is no liquid left on the filter paper. I'm going to take it out. Let the paper dry because we need the mass of paper plus the copper. Copper dry because we don't want the copper to be wet. Because if the copper stays wet, when we measure the mass, it's going to be heavier than what we started with. Then you would think that I was alchemist and I actually created more copper than what I started with, and that is not possible. So ideally, we should get 100% or 0.5. No experiment is error-free. Always have some experimental error. Sometimes it's equipment, other times it's the person who's doing the experiment. So we do have personal error, we have experimental error. It adds up. So if we didn't get a 100%, it's okay. But 100% is ideal. If we get less than 0.5 gram, that means we lost the copper somewhere. When we were decanting, or we didn't add enough sodium hydroxide, not everything precipitated, or we lost it when we were washing, different steps. So if you watch the video, you can predict and find out in which step I was able to lose the copper, in what form. Either the precipitate did not form, or I lost it when I was decanting. If I get more than 100% recovery, if I get basically more than 0.5 grams, I'm just trying to see if the paper is wet or not. Still is wet. Okay, it's not crisp. If I get more than 100%, that means paper is still wet, or the copper still is wet. I didn't dry it well. Or it could mean that there was some zinc left over. And I added HCl to react with zinc to make sure that there is no zinc left over. That's supposed to be. That's what the procedure is calling for. But if I don't add enough HCl and some zinc is left, what I'm measuring the mass is the zinc plus the copper. And if it's zinc plus copper, obviously it's going to weigh more. So these are like hypothetical errors that can be contributing to the percent recovery. It can be higher than 100%, it could be lower than 100%, but the point is for you to understand how could you make it higher or lower. So in case if you were teaching someone to do this experiment, to perform this experiment, you could tell them, be careful not to do this, not to do that, because if you do this or that, you are going to get less than 100% or more than 100%, which none of them is good. Too much of either one is not good. There's always like acceptable range. Let's say if you have like plus minus 5%, for some experiments, then it's okay. But you cannot have 40% extra and say, well, I did everything the way that the procedure said. Instead of that, you just say, maybe I wasn't patient enough, I didn't wash it well, so there's some impurities, I didn't dry it well, maybe there is some solvent left. Okay, paper looks dry, copper looks dry to me. I'm going to take it, and now we're going to go ahead and measure the mass for copper. 1.396 gram. That is the mass of filter paper plus recovered it's slightly less than what I expected. It should have been a little bit more to make it 100% recovery, but the solution, it wasn't completely white color. So maybe I lost some of the copper in the form of copper sulfate, because I didn't wait like long enough for the color to be like completely white color. It had a shade of a blue color. See this? It's not completely white. It has a shade of a blue color. It should have been white. So that small amount of copper loss, it could be because of that also. That's another step that you could lose copper if you don't wait long enough for the reaction of zinc to be completed with copper sulfate, because you're filtering or you're removing that liquid portion and discarding it. We make sure everything is covered. We recovered the recovered copper, we discarded. And from your data sheet, yes, that's what you need after the filtration. And you finish your observation. There are a lot of questions about observation, so I hope that you did pay attention from the beginning of this video in order to record your observation and be able to fill out and answer questions in the data sheet. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording. That's end of experiment 9.